Hi there, everybody. Welcome to video number 2. In the previous video, we talked about how to structure your presentation using Monroe's motivated sequence and that 5-part framework. We also talked about some advice for how to deliver an engaging presentation online. And in this one, I just want to talk about some effective slide design principles. Okay, so some of you might be PowerPoint experts or Canva experts, and you're going to do a fantastic job. For others of you, maybe you really need some help in this area. Wherever you are, I think some of these tips are going to help you out. So let's talk about what to do. So here's an example of a slide that doesn't look very good. It gives you the information that you need, but it's not very visually appealing. And what you want to make sure is that your visuals, or your slides, I should say, are visual. That's the idea. That's why we call them visuals. So the reality is, you are the one giving the presentation. The slide deck isn't giving the presentation. And so your slides should be mostly visual. You can have certainly some words, but we want to see a lot of visuals there just to really complement the things that you're talking about. Okay, so let's say I'm talking about 4 ways teams impact organizations, according to research from West. So here are my 4 ways. Again, super boring, got bullet points there, not a lot of visual interest, okay? So one way to make it go up 1 notch is to shorten the words in the bullet points. All right, so you don't want to have complete sentences in any of your bullet points or any of your slides. You know, shorter words or phrases is definitely more appropriate, okay? Because immediately what happens, as soon as you put a slide up there, your audience starts reading it and you lose their attention, okay? So one way to keep their attention is to make sure that you have very few words on your slide, but still pretty boring. So I could add a picture. A great place to get royalty-free images is the website unsplash.com, unsplash.com. And they have great royalty-free images, hundreds of thousands of them. So you can just do a search. Maybe I did a search for together, you know, or something like that, or team. And this is one of the images that came up. Now, you want to be careful when you go into Unsplash and you do a search at the top, you'll probably see some images that you could pay for. But you want to just make sure you scroll down to the free ones that are just downloadable for free. You can give credit to those if you want to. You don't have to. It's totally fine. But one way to add some visual interest is to grab a high-resolution picture that is sort of maybe a metaphor for what you're talking about and put that in your presentation. But it's still kind of boring, isn't it? So what I might do is now animate my slides. Like I said before, as soon as you start putting words up there, your audience is going to start reading the slides. So I'd encourage you to use animations to have the words show up as you are talking about them. So I might say tonight we're going to be talking about how teams impact organizations. And there's 4 main ways that teams impact organizations. The first way is we see an increase in task performance. And I might talk about that a little bit. And then I click, and then I talk about greater creativity. Click again, increased organizational learning. I click again, increased engagement. So the words don't show up until I talk about them. So I want to encourage you to use animation so the words don't show up until you talk about them. And you can do that both in Canva and in PowerPoint. You might need to watch a YouTube video, a little tutorial if you're not familiar with how to do that. Again, you're using these animation effects so the words don't show up all at the same time. But again, still kind of boring, not a lot of visual interest here. So now you can create a little bit more visual interest. I've actually made the picture now bigger to fill, you know, most of the slide, or at least half of the slide here. I put an overlay over it, so it's now, you know, blue, maybe kind of follows the color scheme that I've used in my slide deck, and then I've superimposed the words in white over that. And then I've got my same 4 points, but now I've used some shapes there, you know, different kind of longer arrows to now talk about the different things. Again, same deal, using the animation so those words and those shapes don't all show up at the same time. So again, just a little bit more interesting, right? As I add some color to these pictures, okay? So you can take it another step forward. In addition to the shapes and the words, you can maybe add some icons too. And again, you can do some icon searches online, grab some of those. There's some built into PowerPoint as well. But again, some icons that go with the different words that I'm talking about here. Certainly another way to do it, adds a little bit more visual interest. Another way to do it, and this is usually a format that I love, is to have the picture large on the whole slide. So it's way more impactful to have one large image versus 1, 2, or 3 smaller images. So one large image is way more impactful than 2 or 3 smaller images. So think about making the picture fill the whole slide, and then to superimpose some words over that slide. Now I made the picture a little darker too, so the white words would show up a little bit more clearer. So again, much more visually interesting. And so I've added now my words, some arrows here, and you kind of get the idea also with the animation too. Now, another way that I could do it is actually break this up into 4 different slides and have one slide with maybe a visual or an image about task performance and could show a group of people working together. The next slide could be maybe a Monet painting or something like that. Talk about creativity. Next slide, group of people learning. And the next one, maybe a group of people really engaged in something. So I'm not so concerned about the number of slides that you have as I am about how well you use your visuals, okay? So you've got about 15 minutes to give your presentation. I would much rather you have a lot of slides with a lot of pictures and very little words than very few slides with very few pictures and a whole lot of words, okay? So that's what we're shooting for. So again, this was our original, and then it looked very different at the end. Again, much more visually appealing and much more visually interesting. So again, play around with some of those things that I just talked about. So let me talk about, let's say you want to do some lists, all right? Maybe you're talking about a framework or a process or something like that, like Monroe's motivated sequence. You know, you could do bullet points with a list, but super boring, right? So you might remember what I did is I grabbed some objects or some shapes, you know, some of these longer arrows, and then made them different colors and created a little sequential order, sequential pattern. And then again, using my animations to only have the words show up as I need them whenever I do my clicker, okay? You can also grab some of the different word art that you can create different lists as well. There's some that are already pre-made there, so you might want to play around with that a little bit. Here are the 5 steps of Monroe's motivated sequence. So you could use some of that word art. And again, it fills the screen real large, visually interesting with the colors too. You know, or you could grab a picture off of Unsplash, maybe give it a little color tone. I grabbed another shape to kind of, you know, create the blue side of the slide, and then made 3 or 4 circles here, put some numbers in there. And then here are the 4 reasons why couples break up, right? Again, a real simple framework that you can use to make a list. Here's another one. Again, grabbed a shape on PowerPoint, made it black to do half of the slide, put some words on that shape, and then here are my different points here. Okay, so the idea is to make your slides visually appealing, all right? Use a lot of color, use a lot of images and visuals, make your images and visuals large, all right? And make sure that your images too really track with what you're talking about, okay? So if you're giving a presentation about airplanes or working in the airline industry, I wanna see tons of pictures of airplanes, okay? If you're talking about animals, I wanna see tons of pictures of animals, all right? So make sure that your visuals really match your topic as well. All right, so hopefully this has been helpful as you think about putting your visuals together. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all. Like I said, I'm excited to meet with every one of you. We'll do a little bit of work here in 559, but most of the work we'll do will be in 560 as we get you ready for that final presentation at the Designer Symposium.